Hi, I'm Dr. Hackie Reitman. Welcome to another episode of Exploring Different Brains. Today, we're so lucky to have with us returning Dr. Mark Goulston, all the way out there from UCLA, doing very exciting stuff. Great to see you again, my old classmate from Boston University. Mark, welcome to Different Brains.
It's great to see you, Hackie. And I got a question, and I often ask this question out of the gate. What made you smile today, Hackie?
Knowing that I was going to be interviewing Mark Goulston made me smile because that brings back memories of our favorite mentor, Dean William F. McNary from Boston University, who fought for both of us and for so many other students.
And as you said that and recalled that we were going to meet again and we would both recall Dean William McNary, could you feel that just a little smile, it has a way of just cutting through some of the OCD, ADD, the stuff in our head? Can you feel how it just cuts through just as you even said it?
100%.
Yeah. So in fact, what we're going to be talking about is my team and I have launched a global initiative, and we have one product called hashtag WMYST, which stands for What Made You Smile Today. And we have an Instagram tag called at WMYST Global. It's a nonprofit, and our mission is to combat the disconnect, the unhappiness, and loneliness in the world using the power of tactical kindness. And WMYST is one of the tactics. We talked in a previous show about something called 8 words, which is another tactic to get through to people who are depressed and even feeling suicidal. And so I'm so pleased to be on and share this with you and your listeners, and they can check out where we launched this at a TEDx talk, and the TEDx talk is called What Made You Smile Today. And can I give a little background about why I'm doing this and why I'm doing this now?
Please.
So as you've known from my background, I was a suicide specialist for 25 years. I was a boots on the ground suicide specialist. One of my other mentors after Dean William McNary was a fellow named Dr. Edwin Schneidman. And if you look up Edwin Schneidman, he is one of the 3 or 4 pioneers in the field of suicide prevention. He co-founded the American Association of Suicidology. And what happened is he would refer highly suicidal patients to me at UCLA, and that's what made it my practice for many years, probably over 30 years. And then what happened is, I'm getting a little bit old in the tooth like you, Hackie, and so life happens. And I do have a documentary that's won a number of awards called Stay Alive, an intimate conversation about suicide prevention, and people can find that out at Stay Alive video. But what happened is roughly 9 months ago, I became a grandpa for the first time. My first grandchild. It has rocked my world, and I wasn't geographically close to my grandparents. So, they were always sweet, but when we'd visit them, we were from out of town. And you hear these cliches about grandparents and grandchildren. And I'm not much of a cliche believer, but it's all true. And I told my wife, we've been married almost 42 years, I said, I gotta believe that I once loved you as much as I love my grandson, but I can't imagine it. No, but she loves my grandson too. And what it is, and I get to see him 4 or 5 times a week. So I've watched him develop, and I'll tell you, if you're a grandparent, you'll know what I'm talking about. When you look into the eyes of an infant, your grandson or granddaughter, it's like looking into the eyes of God. They're just looking at you with pure innocence. they're not looking at their iPad. They're not racing to a video game. They're just looking out, and what they're looking for when they can't use their arms or legs yet, because they're between 2 and 5 months, is they're looking to hold on to you with their eyes. And so what I've been doing is bathing him in, I am so glad you're here. I think you're going to have a great life if I have anything to do with it. And if technology tries to take away your job, we'll find another job for you. And so I just bathe him in this unconditional, boy, am I glad you're here. And I'm not sure I did that with my own kids because I had to go out and earn a living. So I'd be there, but then I had to run and do something. But what happened is he's so made me smile that I've decided to switch in that direction. But if you check out my TEDx talk, I won't tell you the whole thing. But what the TEDx talk was about is I have a good friend who had a 23-year-old drug addict daughter. And this is part of my TEDx talk, but you can check it out when you check out the TEDx. And he basically said to me, he said, I can't stand getting a call from her. She lies, she manipulates. I don't want to get angry at her because she'll overdose. And I'm making it worse, but I don't know what to do. And then he told me, he said, I figured she must smile about something every day. Could be a shower, could be a slice of pizza, could be getting drugs, but there's got to be one thing. So what he did is he started texting her every day at 5 p.m. Hey, honey, it's Dad. What made you smile today? And at first, she kind of tried to manipulate. Oh, I thought you'd give me some money, and you'd help me. And he said, no. We've been down that. No more money, until you get your act together. And he said after about 6 weeks, he sent her a text every day. And he sent her the same thing. Hi, honey, it's Dad. What made you smile today? And she sent him a text back and said, oh, come on, Dad. If you must know, what made me smile today was knowing you would send me a text.
How cool.
You got it. He started to cry. And he said, it was the first time we really liked each other where she didn't want something from me. 2 months later, she was off drugs because instead of being a burden who was resented, her dad liked her. And so ever since then, what's happened is I've been on this mission. You don't even have to see the TEDx talk. You're getting most of it here with Hackie. And so what I do and what we're doing, it's like the ice bucket challenge, is every day, and I mean every day, when one of the name-tagged faceless people serves me, cashier at McDonald's, TSA agent, after they serve me, I always do the same thing. I did this with Carmen at McDonald's. She served me, and I saw her name tag, Carmen. I said, thank you, Carmen. Just the thank you startled her. Thank you, Carmen. My name is Mark. I have a question for you. And then Carmen went, I said, no, Carmen, you're not in trouble. You didn't do anything wrong. And then I looked at her. I said, Carmen, what made you smile today? And she paused. And most of the responses I get, it's a beautiful day, waking up. She gave my favorite. She had this huge smile. And she looked at me and she said, seeing you, sweetie. And so I said to her, I said, Carmen, here's a wristband. In fact, I said, Carmen, I gave her 2 wristbands. And the wristband says, hashtag WMYST. I said, Carmen, you have a great smile. You need to use it every day. And here's a wristband to make sure that you do it every day. And here's a second wristband. Do to someone else what I just did to you. And so I sit down with my coffee. McDonald's makes good coffee. You don't have to go to Starbucks. So I sit down, and what's happening is when she's not busy, she's at the register, and she's like this. I'll tell you, it made me so uncomfortable. I had to leave. But I think there's a power of reminding people what made them smile. So we're just creating this mission to break through, as we said, the disconnect, the unhappiness, and the loneliness. using one smile at a time.
Well, you get into another aspect, which is not spoken about as much as we should, that I know you're an expert on, which is the art of listening.
Absolutely. In fact, you mentioned something because, as I mentioned, I went to Russia and I spoke to 1,000 Russians, and I introduced my latest thinking on communication. So I'm so pleased to be able to mention this to you and to mention it to your audience, because if you can do this, I even think if you're a little bit on the spectrum, it can help you appear to have more empathy when a lot of times you might have struggles with it. And this is what I introduced in Moscow. I said, if you can have pure curiosity, meaning you don't have anything you're trying to sell or convince, and you can focus on what people are listening for. See, a lot of times people listen to us, and then we talk to them, and it's kind of like above the neck a transaction. But if you are just purely curious about what they're listening for, and then you have them open up about it, people lean into you. So if I were to focus on what you're listening for, let me see if I get it. So here's my good friend Hackie. And maybe what you're listening for is, I'm really tuning into what Mark's saying now, because a lot of the people we serve at different brains have trouble connecting. Trouble connecting with themselves. They have trouble connecting with other people. And they're aware that they feel different. And geez, I'm listening for, is Mark saying something that they could use? If they could learn to focus on what other people are listening for and just be curious about it, geez, I'm wondering if that could help some of the people we serve to connect better. That would be amazing. So I don't know if I'm getting it right, but do you follow what I'm saying? That
Yes, I do. And it's what's great about everything that you're saying is that these are tools that we can all use. It doesn't matter what neurodiversity or what kind of different brain we might have, whether I'm on the spectrum or I have lots of anxiety or I tend toward depression or I have a neurological disorder. This is all very helpful and doable and usable.
Yeah, and the way I would introduce it to people with neurodiversity is because I believe, and I believe this would be true of the wonderful interns you introduced me to that you have, I think they would be aware that they're listening for things, that they're listening for solutions to a problem. If they're techies, they're looking for data or something to make something work. Even your great, even Joseph, your techie, he's listening for how to make sure that the audio comes out right and everything else and it flows. And so if you can help people who have neurodiversity to be aware that they're listening for something all the time, you might be able to say, well, can you understand how people you're interacting with are also listening for something to solve something? And sometimes what they're trying to solve is their problem is they want to feel close to you because you're their son, their daughter, their spouse. And so if you can just be curious about what they're listening for and have them tell you what it is, they might actually have the feeling of connecting with you. Can you follow that sort of?
Yes, yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. I made the first chapter in the Asper Tools book, Anxiety, because it kind of rules all of us. And what are some good tips and tricks that you might have for our audience that might help someone with social anxiety for how they might become, for instance, a strong leader? How does it work?
Well, I know you'd find this hard to believe, but I and I can't say it anymore because my wife says you can't say this anymore. I'm an extreme introvert. I mean, painful introvert. And my wife says, you can't say that. You go around the world speaking. Well, when I'm on stage, I've got to show up, but I don't go to the cocktails the night before and make small talk. I just show up and do my thing, and then I exhale, and maybe I'll have just one glass of wine, and then I'll talk to the wall. But and I'll tell you, this is what. Here's an anecdote, because I remember being very shy, and I remember we went to my wife's. This was many years ago. I think her 15th high school reunion. And I was really a pain in the neck. I was whining, when can we leave? I don't know anyone. Yeah. And I don't know that I ruined it for her, but I certainly didn't make it all that pleasant. And, but I evolved a little bit in the next 10 years. So it's the 25th high school reunion. And I said, I'm going to surprise her and be an amazing sport. And we go to the reunion, and I said, I don't know how I'm going to pull it off, but I'm going to speak to 5 people, and they're going to be happy they spoke to me. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. And by the end of the evening, I had spoken to about 7 people, and 5 of them, when we finished talking, they took my hand and 2 hands, and they said, it was really good meeting you. And so afterwards, I was trying to figure out, what the heck did I do? And so I realized I use this tool. With each of them, I asked questions that would cause them to say, I think this about so-and-so. Oh, this is how I would feel. This is what I would do. Think, feel, do. So I might say something like, well, what do you think about it being 25 years since you went to high school? Wow. How do you feel about seeing some of the people that maybe you haven't seen for years? And then I might, for the do, I might say, I might, you're not supposed to talk about politics, but you could say, if you are a president, what would you do to sort of handle these kinds of issues? But what I realized is that when you get someone to say the words, I think this is how I feel, this is what I would do, they feel known by you.
Mark, where can our audience learn more about you and your work?
Well, if you go to Amazon and just put in my name, Mark Goulston, Goulston, you'll find that. As I said, if you go to YouTube and put in TEDx Goulston, you'll find my TEDx talk, What Made You Smile Today. If you go to Instagram, you can join our community at What Made You Smile Today Global, at WMYST Global. It's a .org. I mean, we're not trying to make money. We're just trying to put a dent in the loneliness and unhappiness in the world, one smile at a time. That's part of what Steve Jobs said, is we're here to put a dent in the universe, because that's why we're here. So we're hoping to put a dent in the unhappiness, loneliness, and disconnect of the world. So you can find us there. And what we hope is you'll record selfies, and you can find the wristbands, at WMYST.org. And we're hoping you'll spread the word, kind of like the Ice Bucket Challenge, where you hold up your wristband and say, what made me smile today was such and such. What made you smile? And together, I think we could, make the world a little happier.
Well, we can certainly use that. We can certainly do that. Well, Dr. Mark Goulston from UCLA, look at you, as they say.
Look at you, man.
Look at you. Can you believe it? We made it through medical school and everything, huh? Many years ago.
Take advantage of every day. I mean, it's amazing how quickly time passes. And also, I have this podcast, my wake-up call. Everybody has wake-up calls, but not everybody wakes up. And I hope you'll check those out, my wake-up call podcast. It's on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. and you'll be able to tune into the great interview that Hackie gave me, where I talked as much as he did. But there you go. Hackie, you're a better listener than I am.
You make a lot more sense. And let me tell you something. This could be my all-time record for being held. Really, I love listening to everything you've had to say. And I really didn't want to interrupt you because it's all good stuff. And not the least of which, and I don't want it to get lost in all of the morass there, lost in the whole texture of everything we've discussed in both of our interviews. But the fact that you specialize and deal many times with, in your practice, with suicide, and none of your patients have committed suicide. That's got to be a world's record.
Well, the key is, I'll just share this anecdote. I gave a presentation at the California Community College Mental Health and Wellness Conference, and these were all the heads of mental health programs at community colleges, and it went pretty well. And they said, so give us some tips. How come your people don't kill themselves? And I said, I'll give you a tip, but you won't be able to follow it because you work for somebody. See, I was blessed because after I finished training, I didn't work for an institution. And very early on, when I was meeting with suicidal patients and I'd look in their eyes, I could pick up that what they were saying to me in their eyes was, you're checking boxes and I'm running out of time. And after a while, it screamed out at me with their eyes. So I just put the clipboard away. And so I told these people, I said, there's 3 questions that I will often ask people. And I don't think you can do it because you have to, it's off protocol. Can you hear me? Yeah, there was a bad connection there. You'll have to edit it. Okay, yeah. So I said, there's 3 questions that I used to ask people when I was in practice. I'm no longer practicing. Is I'd look them in the eye, and I have a way of looking into people's eyes and holding on to their eyes, kind of like what I'm doing now, and they would see it. And I would say to them, at your absolute worst, where it's real awful, how bad does that get for you? And they would look at me, what? And I'd repeat it, at your absolute worst, and you're feeling terrible, how bad does that get for you? And their eyes would they'd check out, well, am I going to hospitalize them or something? And then they'd say, really awful. And then the second question is, when you're feeling that way, how alone do you feel? They look at me, totally alone. And then my third question was, take me to such a time. Take me to 2:30 in the morning in the last week. And then they start to talk about it. And here's what I've discovered is when you can get someone to talk about something really awful, and they talk about it so clearly that you can see it. I can see them walking around their bedroom, banging the pillow, looking for a broken Ambien, wanting to put their head through the wall, and they're telling me that. When I can get them to talk about it so clearly that I can see it, they relive it. And when they relive it, they're not alone. And when they relive it with you, they start to cry. And when they start to cry, they start to feel relief. And when they start to feel relief, they start to be able to think more clearly. Because as we've talked about, they're not agitated. They calm down because they're crying with relief because they feel less alone. I wrote a blog after Anthony Bourdain died by suicide. It got 500,000 views and 75,000 reads in 6 days. And I said, why people kill themselves, it's not depression. And what I talked about is that there's hundreds of millions of people who are depressed, who lose jobs, lose marriages, who don't kill themselves. So they all contribute. And I said, one of the things that they all feel at the end is despair. And if you break the word despair into DESPAIR, they feel unpaired with reasons to live. Hopeless, helpless, useless, worthless, meaningless, pointless. And what happens is when they all line up, they pair with death to take the pain away. So if you can pair with them in the dark night of the soul so that they feel less alone, they'll pair with you instead of death. And that was a lot of my presentation. And, and I'll tell you, the people who were attending, they were tearing up because they could just picture how it would work. And then what they said to me, they shrugged their shoulders and they say, you're right, we can't do that. Because it's, because no, we have to be saying, no, maybe we should give you medicine. We'll send you to such and such. And, but we'll see, what I'm hoping is someone will say, we need to institute what I learned from this presentation. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, thank you so much for teaching us. This is great.
Well,
Mark, that time went by. Thank you again so much for being with us here at Different Brains. Keep up the great work you do for so many.
Thank you.
Exploring Different Brains is a production of Different Brains, Inc. For more information, visit us at differentbrains.org.